Hi, my name is Christine Dunn, and I'm doing this week's Lenten devotion. The scripture reading is Matthew 27, verses 24 to 26. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It's your responsibility." All the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. I'm sitting here today recording this in the offices at Lutheran Social Services. And so I'm so struck by when Pilate says, "I'm innocent of this man's blood," trying to shirk responsibilities and say, somebody else can deal with this. Somebody else can take care of it. And it's really easy for me. I think about this a lot. It's really easy for me as a white woman who lives a pretty good life. I have lots of luxuries that I know many people don't have. And certainly there are times where I think, oh, my life would be a little bit easier if I had more money or more of something. But at the end of the day, I'm really blessed and I'm really lucky. And it's easy for me to live in my bubble and not necessarily see the plight of other people's lives and say it's somebody else's responsibility, or it's not my fault. It's not my fault that our country still deals with systemic racism, or it's not my fault that people don't have adequate housing, or it's not my fault about healthcare or schooling or any of these things, right? I didn't make the systems that put them in place. But sometimes it would be really easy for me to wash my hands of it and not be part of the solution. And so I just was, and pushed my responsibility off on somebody else's. And so it's often, during Lent, we can point fingers at Pilate and say or think, he could have done something else. He could have made a difference. He didn't have to just wash his hands of it, and we can point fingers at him. But we're just pointing fingers at ourselves too. I think sometimes there's a little bit of Pilate in all of us. I remember really distinctly one time, my middle son, Jackson, when he was much younger, he was so confused about how the date of Easter changes every year. Christmas is a fixed date and the date of Easter changes. And so he put it together that meant Good Friday was on a different day. And he said to me, "You mean we kill Jesus on a different day each year?" And it's always struck with me because I thought about how it's true. We kill Jesus in different ways on every day of every year over and over again. In some ways we do that. And thank God that we are Easter people. And so we live on this side of the resurrection, despite traveling through Lent. And then I guess the final thing I was thinking about, especially in regards to the scripture reading, is when Pilate washes his hands. I don't think this is what Pilate was thinking about at that moment, but what struck me is, what cleanses us and what frees us to love and to be creators with God in this world is that we are baptized and claimed and named by God. And, in the scripture, when Pilate tries to do that for himself, to wash himself and to cleanse himself, that he can't do that action. The only person that can do that action is God. And so I'm reminded of both the ways in which I sometimes fail to live up to God's, my calling. And I'm also reminded that action of forgiveness, it's not up to me, that God has already forgiven me, God has already washed us, and that we are clean and we are called to to know that it is our responsibility, right? It's not somebody else's, that it is our responsibility. And not only that, but it is a gift that we get to live out our callings, and we get to make a difference in people's lives in real and tangible ways. So thank you for being with me and sharing the scripture with me, and a blessed Lent to the rest of you for the rest of these days.